Hey there, I wanted to do a quick little video series on people who hate Ron Paul. I was originally just going to do one video, and then I realized there's enough to be said about who I would wish to mention to make separate videos for each group. So the first group I'm going to mention, one of the two obvious ones, are liberals. And by that I certainly do not mean classical liberals or European liberals, I mean American socialist liberals. Uh, Liberals hate Ron Paul because he is pretty much against everything that they are for. Uh, and not just like a normal Republican who is rhetorically against what they're for, but in practice only wants moderately less or no increase of what they want. He wants to literally abolish completely things that they consider the highest achievement, if not the end goal, of all human civilization and history. Um, it depends exactly, what their specific views are. So this is something that is so distasteful to them that they cannot abide him. Uh, his intellectual honesty, in this case, is harmful because it is dangerous to them. Now, it is true that he has gone out of his way to emphasize, in terms of priorities, that the domestic welfare state, which liberals prize so much, is of a lesser concern to him than the the U.S. empire, although he correctly understands that they are actually linked and related. He has been very explicit that he would much prefer to cut military spending, militarism, especially, in particular the wars and also the numerous bases around the world, prior to anything else. But to his credit, he has acknowledged and said that the welfare programs, pretty much all of them, with the possible exception of Veterans Affairs, should be uh, curtailed and eventually abolished. Now, typically, he seems to take the gradualist approach of we should allow people to opt out and allow them to kind of wither away. In any event, this is anathema to liberals who, as a religion, view state intervention in society and state aid to individuals as the highest possible good that can be achieved in this life, in this world. And for him to suggest otherwise makes him literally evil, which is interesting because he's obviously not evil. He's basically a nice old man at this point, and to call him evil is silly. But uh, now there are a very few. It's interesting because this foreign policy stuff is ostensibly something that liberals would agree with. And to be fair, there are a few, a very, very small number, who will acknowledge that they disagree with him on the domestic stuff, but are willing to listen to him and, if not completely support him, at the very least, appreciate him for what he wants to do in foreign policy. However, I'm not willing to exonerate liberals because of this tiny minority. By and large, it is a tiny minority, a begrudging minority, and it's not surprising because the ideology of statism, of state intervention, of welfarism is as discredited and as foolish as imperialism and state warfarism. And it's not surprising that people who would believe so strongly in such an absurd doctrine would fail to appreciate the merits of someone like Dr. Paul, even when he agrees with them. And the other thing is that it's become clear now, and there were hints that this was true before, that the anti-war sentiments of the left, of liberals, are by and large a joke. They are mostly partisan anti-Bush, which is justified. Um, and those sentiments are gone now that Obama has been elected. They have either transformed. Some liberals have become neocon hawks who want to stay and finish the job, and the others are just ignoramuses who imagine that the war is over. I've seen posts of people who insist the Iraq War ended, a year ago. Uh, that level of delusion is staggering from people who apparently function normally, have jobs and stuff, most of them anyway. Uh, but given that, it's not surprising that they would balk at someone as intellectually honest and uh, rigorous as Dr. Paul, who, even though he does water down his remarks in his speeches and in debates and public sentiments, it is actually fairly highbrow stuff, and they're not likely to get it, um, especially in little sound bites. So liberals hate Ron Paul. They shouldn't hate him, but they do and they will. I have no hope that as a group they will ever come to him. I do have hope that some of them, a tiny minority, will. Um, some of them will be converted by him. I know that this has happened. I've met people who this has happened to, but I think that's a very, very small minority. A few of them, for pragmatic reasons, will support him. But I mean, I was just on a Facebook group the other day. I didn't join it, but I was reading about it, and it was called Democrats for Ron Paul. And I think it was called Democrats for. It was a site, a group dedicated to Democrats organizing in the um, in for the aid of Ron Paul, and it says something to the effect that we really need to do this to ensure that he'll be running against Obama, and if he's running against Obama, then we'll have two anti-war candidates. Now, logically, that would make sense. If you have two anti-war candidates, then obviously anti-war candidate will win. However, I was taken aback by the absurdity of the idea that Obama is an anti-war candidate. Even when before he was elected, his statements did not show this, and his actions since then have shown him to be as bad, and in some instances even worse, than George W. Bush. Uh, so this group of Ron Paul supporting liberals are such morons that they think that Obama is anti-war, which is a completely indefensible statement. I suppose they could fall back on the conspiracy theory that it's all still Bush's fault. Uh, God knows I know Republicans who to this day blame Clinton on Bush's big spending. So I guess it goes both ways there. So yes, liberals hate Ron Paul. Uh, the liberal ideology is retarded, which means you can't hope for consistent liberals to come to Dr. Paul in any numbers, and they won't. And they will support whoever the Democrat is, and they will not flock to Ron Paul. However, the good news is, like I said, a tiny, tiny few of them will, and that tiny, tiny few is actually a large number when it comes to the Republican primaries and caucuses. Um, if it was possible to mobilize a lot of them to do that, that might actually be meaningful. And also, there is a rumor afoot, I read somewhere, that the Obama White House, or at least the Democratic hierarchy, is liking the idea of a Paul's presence in the electorate. They believe that they can make him into a third party and split the Republican ticket. Of course, if he was a third party, obviously Obama would be reelected, unless something amazing happened, like Obama got caught raping a child while stealing money from. Other than that, a third party would definitely mean Obama would win. I don't know if that story is true. It is plausible. It has happened before where the opposition, third parties have been created to guarantee a victory. Most significantly, although not so well known, would be the Bull Moose Party under Theodore Roosevelt, which guaranteed Wilson being elected. And of course, that had that was one of the most disastrous presidencies in the history, probably number 2 or 3. Uh, I don't know if that's true, but anyway, yeah, I think though it's telling that the likely influence of liberals in this election, in terms of Ron Paul, is probably negative. So there we go.